Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 2. So Module 2 is getting into some of our first types of writing assignments, which will be paragraphs. And you're going to learn a little bit more about the writing process, starting with pre-writing and then moving into how do you start to construct at the paragraph level. And so this will lead into our first writing assignments, which are going to be paragraphs. So let me show you what it looks like. The main thing that you're doing here is practicing some pre-writing and then some practice out of chapters 3 and 4, which are some of the more important chapters. You're probably going to end up referring back to those chapters quite a bit as you write. So as you can see, our reading section includes everything that you need to be reading. Chapter 3, Chapter 4, you already read the pre-writing chapter as part of the previous unit. So if you did not do that reading, then you want to go back and do that. So that's the Chapter 2, which is one of the readings from Module 1. And then the pre-writing discussion board is just a chance for you to practice some pre-writing techniques. Now, this is going to get a little bit confusing because you're not actually writing any kind of essay or paragraph or anything like that using these prompts. You are just practicing the pre-writing techniques, and you're doing it as a discussion board, which makes it just a little bit different. So the first thing you're going to do is choose one of the prompts and do a free write about it. And the prompts are on page 12. There are 6 of them, and so you get to come up with your own free write there, and that's the first step, is just to do a free write. Free writes generally are free flow of writing. Try to come up with as many ideas as possible within the time period, in this case 10 minutes, and just keep typing anything that you can think of. And so it's not about the quality of the writing, it's not even about things really making much sense, it's just ideas that you can come up with. Some students do free writes more as like a list, but typically they're done in paragraph form. Then what you're going to do is reply to 2 students' posts. Now, it's going to be a little strange because you are using somebody else's free write, so somebody else's ideas. If you're the first person to respond, you're going to do a cluster map. And cluster maps are kind of fun because they are visual representations of something. You can draw it by hand if you want to, if that's easier. Some students like to use colored pens and make it look visually appealing. And then you'll have to take a picture of it and then upload it, or scan it and upload it. But you can also just as easily put it into a Word document and just use those circle and line symbols to connect ideas. One free write per post, because one cluster map per free write. And so if you're the first person to respond, you can do a cluster map. Everyone else has to ask leading questions, and the questions are examples on 13 and 14. So you are cluster mapping somebody else's ideas, and then if you're the second person to respond, you will be asking questions. So question asking is kind of the next step when doing any kind of pre-writing, or can be involved in the pre-writing process. So all we're doing is practicing these pre-writing techniques. So free writing, cluster mapping, questioning, those are kind of the 3 main ones. And basically you're just trying to demonstrate that you know how to do them. And so that's why we're not as concerned with you doing them all to your specific topic that you're going to use for an essay. So in this case, we're not using it for an essay. So then the other thing that you're doing in this module is you're going to look back at the fundamentals of reading, which there we go. Which is the part of the, let's keep going, part of the previous unit. So you had this linked in there, this college level reading support open source textbook, which you can look at once again if you need to, or you can download the PDF, and then you actually take a quiz on it. So I told you in the previous video that we're going to be referring back to this several times. Our main textbook, our Evergreen textbook, does not have a very extensive section on reading, and so that's why we're making sure that you have this support in a separate e-textbook, and that is college level reading support. So 10 questions. Most of the quizzes in this class are set up the same way, where you can take them as many times as you want to. Highest grades recorded. There's no time limit. I recommend taking them multiple times. Usually it pulls from a pool, and so you'll get different questions, different times, and this can help you later on as you have quizzes that start to combine different questions. Then the last thing that you're doing in this module is some practice in Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Your textbook, you'll notice, has a lot of workbook type exercises, which, because this is an online class, we don't get to use a lot of them because we're not in class. We're not able to just sit down and write the answers. And so in order to be able to use the book just a little bit, I created this assignment, and basically it's just practice with the basics of Chapter 3 and 4, which look at creating a paragraph, developing a paragraph, and then achieving coherence. And so you're going to do the listed practices here, which again, don't make it harder than it's supposed to be. Each one is going to be a couple of numbers long. What you actually turn in and type on the page is not going to be nearly as long as what it looks like in the chapter. So for example, I'm looking at practice number 1 on pages 49 through 50. There are 1, 2, 3 sets of sentences, and so all you're going to type on your Word document is number 1 and then the order that you think those sentences need to go in. And then you'll have number 2 and your number 3, and that's it. That's what you're going to type up and you'll turn in. They're really not, it'll take you a little while to finish all 5 of them, but you don't actually have to type a lot. I'm not expecting you to recreate all of the sentences or something like that. So again, one of these assignments where students might get a little bit confused, if you have any questions about it, or if about what you're doing is correct, you can always email me. You can always send me the file that you're working in and ask, if you're doing it correctly and that kind of thing. So that is it for Module 2. Again, we are just getting more practice. We're getting some information or background because we're going to start working on our first paragraph here pretty soon. So our first major writing assignment, we want to make sure that you have a good foundation first. Have a great week. Hopefully you're doing well. If you have any questions, send me an email.